I will never forget the look on my father's face the day he stopped believing in me. It was not anger. It was not disappointment. It was something far worse. It was emptiness. It was the look of a man who had finally accepted that his son, the boy he had raised and loved and sacrificed everything for, was not the person he thought he was. That look has haunted me every single day since. It follows me into my dreams. It greets me every morning when I open my eyes. It sits with me at dinner, at work, at every moment when I allow myself to remember what I did and what it cost me. My name is Michael Harrison, but everyone calls me Mike. I am 34 years old, and this is the story of how I cheated my own father and watched him give up on me completely. To understand how I became capable of betraying the man who gave me everything, you need to understand who my father was. You need to understand the kind of man Robert Harrison was, because without that context, this story is just another tale of a selfish son who made terrible choices. But this is more than that. This is about the systematic destruction of a relationship that should have been unbreakable. This is about how I took the most honest, hardworking, loving man I have ever known and broke him in ways that I am still trying to comprehend. My father grew up with nothing. He was born in a small town in Ohio to parents who worked themselves to the bone just to keep food on the table. His father was a factory worker who died of a heart attack when my dad was 16. I never met my grandfather, but my father talked about him sometimes, always with a mixture of love and sadness. He said his father was the kind of man who never complained, who just put his head down and did what needed to be done, who believed that hard work was the answer to every problem. My father inherited that belief, and it shaped everything about who he became. His mother worked 2 jobs after his father died, cleaning houses during the day and waitressing at a diner at night. My father dropped out of high school to help support his younger siblings, taking any job he could find, from delivering newspapers to washing dishes to working construction sites. He never complained about it. He never saw it as a sacrifice. He just did what needed to be done, because that was the kind of man he was. That was the kind of man he always was. I remember asking him once, when I was about 12 years old, if he ever resented having to give up his education. We were sitting on the back porch of our house, watching the fireflies dance in the summer twilight, and he turned to me with this look of genuine confusion on his face. "Resent it?" he said. "Michael, I got to help my family. I got to be there for my mother and my brothers and sisters when they needed me. How could I resent that? Some things are more important than a diploma. Family is more important. Doing the right thing is more important." That was my father. That was who he was at his core. A man who believed that integrity was more valuable than any amount of money or success. A man who would rather sacrifice his own dreams than let down the people who depended on him. A man whose word was his bond, who never made a promise he did not keep, who never cut corners or took shortcuts, even when it would have been easier. By the time he was 25, he had saved enough money to start his own construction company with his best friend George Mitchell. They called it Harrison Mitchell Construction, and they built it from the ground up with nothing but hard work, integrity, and a reputation for doing things right. My father used to say that a man's word was his bond, that if you promised something, you delivered it, no matter what it cost you. He lived by that code his entire life. He never cheated anyone. He never lied to get ahead. He never took the easy path when the right path was harder. I grew up watching him work. I spent my summer vacations on job sites, carrying tools and fetching water for the workers, learning the business from the ground up just like he wanted. He would take me to meetings with clients, explaining how to listen to what people really needed, how to underpromise and overdeliver, how to build trust one handshake at a time. He taught me how to read blueprints, how to estimate costs, how to manage a team. He was preparing me, even then, to take over the family business someday. Those are some of my happiest memories, the summers I spent working alongside my father. The smell of sawdust and concrete, the sound of hammers and saws, the satisfaction of watching something take shape from nothing, knowing that I was part of it, that my father was proud of me. I felt like I was walking in his footsteps, becoming the man he wanted me to be. My mother was the heart of our family. Elizabeth Harrison, though everyone called her Beth, was the kind of woman who made every room brighter just by being in it. She was warm and nurturing and endlessly patient, the peacemaker who smoothed over every conflict, the cheerleader who celebrated every victory, the comforter who held us when we cried. She balanced my father's seriousness with her lightness, his stoicism with her warmth, his dedication to work with her insistence on family time and laughter. She died when I was 22, cancer, the same disease that seems to take everyone eventually. I watched her waste away over the course of a year, watched the light in her eyes dim and flicker and finally go out. I held her hand in the hospital room when she took her last breath, and I felt something inside me break that has never fully healed. My father was destroyed by her death. They had been together for 30 years, high school sweethearts who had built a life together from nothing. She was his anchor, his safe harbor, the person he came home to at the end of every long day. Without her, he was lost. He threw himself into work even more than before, spending 18-hour days at the office, burying his grief in contracts and blueprints and the endless details of running a business. I think he believed that if he stopped moving, if he allowed himself to feel the full weight of his loss, it would crush him completely, and I drifted. Without my mother there to guide me, to encourage me, to believe in me, I lost my sense of purpose. I finished college with a business degree, not because I was passionate about it, but because it seemed like the practical choice. I worked for a few different companies after graduation, sales jobs mostly, trying to find my footing in a world that suddenly felt cold and unfamiliar. I was not particularly successful. I was not particularly driven. I was just going through the motions, waiting for something to ignite a spark inside me, waiting for something to fill the void my mother had left behind. When I was 27, my father offered me a position at Harrison Mitchell Construction. He said he wanted me to learn the business from the ground up, to understand every aspect of how it worked before I took on any real responsibility. He was careful not to show favoritism, careful to make clear that I would have to earn my place just like everyone else. But I could see the hope in his eyes, the excitement at the thought of finally working alongside his son, of passing on everything he had built to the next generation. I accepted, partly because I did not have any better options and partly because I knew it would make him happy. And for the first 2 years, things went well. I worked hard, learned the ropes, and started to feel like maybe this was where I belonged after all. I got married to Jennifer, a beautiful, kind woman I had met through mutual friends. We bought a house in the suburbs, started talking about having kids, and everything seemed like it was falling into place. Jennifer was everything I was not. She was grounded and stable and certain of who she was and what she wanted. She was a teacher, 3rd grade, and she loved her job with a passion that I envied. She would come home with stories about her students, her eyes lighting up as she described their small victories and breakthrough moments. She believed in me, even when I did not believe in myself. She saw potential in me that I could not see. She loved me in a way that I did not deserve, a way that I would eventually betray in the worst possible manner. We were happy those first few years, or at least I thought we were happy. Looking back, I can see the cracks that were already forming, the ways I was pulling away from her without realizing it. I was restless, dissatisfied with my life in ways I could not articulate. I had everything I was supposed to want: a good job, a loving wife, a nice house, a promising future, but it did not feel like enough. There was an emptiness inside me, a hunger for something more, something exciting, something that would make me feel alive in a way that my comfortable suburban existence could not. And then I met Victor Crane. Victor was the owner of a nightclub downtown, a place called the Velvet Room, where some of my colleagues liked to go after work to blow off steam. The first time I walked through those doors, I felt like I had stepped into another world. The music was loud, the lights were low, and everyone seemed to be having the time of their lives. It was so different from the buttoned-up corporate environment I was used to, so different from the quiet evenings at home with Jennifer watching television and talking about our days. Victor noticed me right away. He had a gift for that, for picking out the people who were ripe for manipulation. He came over to my table, bought me a drink, and started asking questions about my life with a level of interest that was flattering and intoxicating. He was charismatic in a way that was hard to define, the kind of person who made you feel like you were part of something exciting just by being in his presence. He was flashy and confident and lived a lifestyle that was so different from the conservative, hardworking world I had grown up in. We became friends, or at least I thought we did. Looking back, I can see that Victor was never really my friend. He was a predator who recognized something in me, some vulnerability or weakness that he could exploit. He saw the emptiness I was trying to fill, the dissatisfaction I could not name, and he positioned himself as the answer to all of it. But at the time, I was blind to it. I was flattered that someone like him wanted to spend time with someone like me. Victor introduced me to gambling on a Thursday night about a month after we met. He said he was hosting a private poker game at his club, just a few friends getting together for some cards and drinks, nothing serious. He made it sound so casual, so harmless. I had played poker before, friendly games with college buddies where the stakes were never more than $20. This seemed like more of the same, just with nicer surroundings. I won that first night. Almost $500. More money than I had ever won at anything in my life. I remember the rush I felt when I raked in that final pot. The way my heart was pounding. The way everyone at the table was looking at me with a mixture of respect and envy. Victor clapped me on the back and said I was a natural, that he had never seen anyone read the table so well on their first try. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I was special, that I had some talent that set me apart from everyone else. That was all it took to hook me. One night, one win, one taste of that intoxicating feeling of beating the odds. I started coming back every week, then every few days, then whenever Victor would let me through the door. The stakes got higher, the games got more intense, and I kept winning, at least at first. I was good at reading people, at knowing when they were bluffing and when they had the cards to back up their bets. Or at least I thought I was good at it. Looking back, I suspect Victor was letting me win, building my confidence, getting me hooked before he started to reel me in. The losses started about 2 months in. Small at first, a few $100s here and there, nothing I could not recover from. But they added up, and so did my desperation to win them back. I started chasing my losses, making bigger and bigger bets in the hope of getting even. I started borrowing money, first from my savings, then from credit cards, then from people I barely knew. The hole I was digging kept getting deeper, and I could not stop digging. Jennifer noticed the changes in me before I was willing to admit them to myself. She asked why I was coming home so late, why I seemed distracted and anxious, why I was snapping at her over little things that never used to bother me. I lied to her. I told her work was stressful, that I was under pressure from my father to perform, that I just needed some time to sort things out. She believed me because she loved me and because she had no reason to think I was capable of the kind of deception I was engaged in. My father noticed too. He pulled me aside one day at the office and asked if everything was okay. He said I seemed off, not myself, like something was weighing on me. I looked him in the eye and told him everything was fine, that I was just tired, that I had been having trouble sleeping. He nodded and squeezed my shoulder and told me to take care of myself, that the work would always be there but my health was more important. The trust in his eyes was absolute. He did not even consider the possibility that I might be lying to him. By the time I was 30, I was in debt to the tune of $50,000. I had borrowed from everyone and everything, maxed out credit cards, taken out personal loans, even borrowed from a loan shark Victor introduced me to, a terrifying man named Dominic who made it very clear what would happen if I did not pay him back on time. I was drowning, and I could not see a way out. That was when Victor suggested the solution that would destroy everything. We were sitting in a back room at the Velvet Room, just the two of us, and I was telling him about my debts, about the pressure I was under, about how I did not know what to do. He listened with that sympathetic expression he was so good at, nodding in all the right places, making me feel like he genuinely cared about my problems. "You work for your father's company, right?" he said, like the thought had just occurred to him. "You must have access to the finances, the accounts." I knew immediately where he was going, and I should have shut it down right there. I should have told him that was not an option, that I would never steal from my own father, that there had to be another way. But I did not. I sat there and listened as he laid out how easy it would be, how I could move money around in ways that would not immediately attract attention, how I could pay off my debts and replace the funds before anyone noticed. He made it sound so simple, so temporary, so victimless. "Oh, just a loan," he said. "You borrow from the company, pay off your debts, and then you pay it back over time. No one gets hurt. Your father never even has to know." I told him I would think about it. I went home that night and lay in bed next to Jennifer, listening to her breathe, thinking about what Victor had suggested. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a betrayal of everything my father had taught me, everything he believed in, everything he had spent his life building. But I was desperate. I was scared. I could not see any other way out. The first transfer was $10,000. I did it on a Monday morning before anyone else arrived at the office. I moved the money from one of the company's operating accounts into a personal account I had set up under a fake name, just like Victor had shown me. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to type the numbers 3 times before I got them right. When it was done, I sat at my desk and stared at the screen, waiting for alarms to go off, for someone to burst through the door and confront me. But nothing happened. The money was gone, and no one knew. I paid off Dominic first. He did not thank me or congratulate me on making good on my debt. He just took the money, counted it, and told me he hoped he would not see me again. I told him he would not, that I had learned my lesson, that I was done with gambling forever. He laughed, this cold, knowing laugh that still echoes in my nightmares. "They all say that," he said. "They never mean it." He was right. Within a week, I was back at Victor's poker table, convinced that my luck had finally turned, that I could win back everything I had lost and more. And for one glorious night, it seemed like I was right. I won almost $20,000, the biggest score of my life. I felt invincible, untouchable, like the universe had finally recognized my talent and was rewarding me for my persistence. But gambling does not work that way. The house always wins in the end. And over the next few months, I lost everything I had won and more. The debts piled up again, worse than before. And I went back to my father's accounts again and again, taking more each time, telling myself the same lies I had told before. It was temporary. I would pay it back. No one would ever know. I became skilled at hiding my tracks. I created fake invoices for supplies that were never ordered, phantom expenses that existed only on paper. I manipulated the books in ways that would not immediately attract attention, spreading the losses across multiple accounts and projects. It was almost like a game, seeing how much I could take without getting caught, how long I could keep the deception going. Over the next 2 years, I stole over $300,000 from Harrison Mitchell Construction. $300,000 that my father and George Mitchell had spent decades earning. $300,000 that represented the blood and sweat and sacrifice of honest men who trusted me with their life's work. And I fed it all into the bottomless pit of my addiction, chasing a high that was never going to last, trying to fill an emptiness that could never be filled with money. Jennifer tried to reach me during this time. She could see that something was deeply wrong, that the man she had married was disappearing and being replaced by someone she did not recognize. She begged me to talk to her, to tell her what was going on, to let her help. But I pushed her away, retreated into my lies, convinced myself that I was protecting her by keeping her in the dark. We fought constantly during those last months of our marriage, stupid fights about nothing, about who forgot to buy milk or who left the dishes in the sink. I would storm out of the house and drive to the velvet room, seeking the adrenaline rush of the poker table, the brief escape from the mess I had made of my life. And Jennifer would be asleep when I came home, or pretending to be asleep, and the distance between us would grow a little wider. I remember one fight in particular, about 3 months before everything fell apart. She had found a credit card statement I had forgotten to hide, a statement that showed thousands of dollars in cash advances I could not explain. She confronted me with it, her hands shaking, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. "What is this, Michael? Where is this money going?" I should have told her the truth. I should have broken down and confessed everything, begged for her help, done whatever it took to start digging myself out of the hole I had created. But instead, I lied. I told her it was a mistake, a bank error, something I would clear up in the morning. I told her she was overreacting, that she needed to trust me, that everything was fine. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see that she did not believe me. But she chose not to push, chose to accept my lies because the alternative was too painful to contemplate. She went to bed without another word, and I sat in the living room, staring at that credit card statement, knowing that I was destroying my marriage one lie at a time. My sister Emma was more direct in her suspicions. She had always been the observant one in our family, the one who noticed things other people missed. She started asking pointed questions about my lifestyle, about how I could afford the new car I was driving, the expensive watches I was wearing, the dinners I was buying at restaurants we could not afford. I brushed her off, told her she was being paranoid, that I was doing well at work and could afford a few luxuries. But she did not buy it. She started watching me more closely, paying attention to my comings and goings, asking our father subtle questions about my performance at the company. She was building a case, I realize now. She was gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to confront me. But she never got that chance, because the accountants found everything first.
The crash came on a Tuesday in November. It was raining, a cold grey drizzle that seemed to seep into my bones. George Mitchell had hired an outside accounting firm to do a comprehensive audit of the company's finances in preparation for a potential expansion. They were looking for investors, thinking about taking the business national, and they needed clean books to show potential partners. It was supposed to be a routine review, a formality before they approached the money people. But there was nothing routine about what they found. I was sitting in my office when my father called me to the conference room. His voice was strange, tight in a way I had never heard before, and I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. When I walked in, George was there too, along with 2 accountants I did not recognize. They had papers spread out across the table, columns of numbers highlighted in yellow and red, documents that represented my crimes laid out in stark black and white. My father did not say anything at first. He just looked at me, and I knew in that moment that everything was over. The game was up. The lies had finally caught up with me. He knew. He knew everything. George was the one who spoke first. He went through the discrepancies methodically, professionally, like he was delivering a report to a stranger rather than exposing the crimes of his best friend's son. He talked about the missing funds, the fake invoices, the phantom expenses I had created. He showed me the paper trail I had left behind, the evidence of my deception that I had thought was so cleverly hidden. When he was done, silence filled the room. It was the loudest silence I had ever experienced, a void that seemed to swallow everything. My father still had not spoken. He was just sitting there, staring at the papers in front of him, his hands folded on the table like he was praying. I could see his jaw clenching and unclenching, could see the struggle playing out across his face as he tried to process what he was hearing. Finally, he looked up at me. His eyes were red, wet with tears he was fighting to hold back. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Tell me it is not true, Michael. Tell me there is some explanation I am not seeing. Tell me my son did not steal from me. That was the moment I had the chance to come clean, to confess everything and throw myself on his mercy. Maybe if I had been honest then, if I had owned up to what I had done and begged for forgiveness, things would have been different. Maybe we could have started healing right then and there, instead of years later. But I was too scared, too ashamed, too deep in denial to tell the truth. I tried to deny it. I claimed there had been a mistake, that someone must have framed me, that I would never do something like this to my own father. The lies came out of my mouth automatically, reflexively, like a dying animal lashing out in its final moments. I said that the accountants had made an error, that the numbers did not add up because of some glitch in the system, that I was being set up by enemies I could not identify. But my father was not a fool. He could see the truth in my eyes, hear it in the tremor of my voice. And with every word I spoke, I watched something inside him break a little more. The hope drained from his face, replaced by a devastation so complete that it was almost unbearable to witness. George told me to leave. He said they would be contacting their lawyers and that I should do the same. He said there would be consequences, both legal and professional. He said a lot of things, but I barely heard any of it. All I could focus on was my father's face, the way he refused to look at me now, the way he seemed to have aged 10 years in the span of 10 minutes. The man who had always been my hero, my role model, the standard against which I measured myself, he could not even meet my eyes. I left the building and sat in my car for an hour, unable to drive, unable to think, unable to process what had just happened. The rain was still falling, streaming down my windshield like tears, and I just sat there staring at nothing, feeling the weight of everything I had done crushing down on me. I thought about running, about driving until I ran out of gas, and then just walking into the wilderness and disappearing forever. I thought about driving to the Velvet Room and finding Victor and begging him to help me fix this mess. I thought about a lot of things, but in the end I just sat there paralyzed by shame and fear. When I finally went home, Jennifer was there, and I knew from her face that she already knew. Emma had called her. Of course, Emma had called her. My sister had finally gotten the proof she needed, and she had wasted no time sharing it with my wife. Jennifer was standing in the kitchen, her arms crossed over her chest, her eyes red from crying. She did not yell at me. She did not scream or throw things or do any of the things I might have expected. She just looked at me with this expression of absolute betrayal and said 5 words that cut deeper than any accusation. "You lied to me, Michael." I tried to explain. I told her about the gambling, about Victor, about the debts, and the desperation, and the terrible choices I had made. I told her I was sorry, that I never meant for any of this to happen, that I loved her and would do anything to make it right. I talked until my voice was hoarse, until the words started running together, until I ran out of excuses and justifications, and was left with nothing but the naked truth of what I had done. She listened to all of it without interrupting, and when I was done, when I had finally emptied myself of every lie and rationalization, she said something that I will never forget. "I married you because I thought you were a good man, Michael. I built my life around you because I believed in you. And now I find out that the person I loved does not exist. He was never real. He was just a lie you told to make yourself feel better." She went to the guest room that night and locked the door. I heard her crying through the wall, these deep, wrenching sobs that went on for hours. I sat on the floor outside her door, wanting to comfort her, knowing I had lost the right to even try. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and negotiations and confrontations. George wanted to press charges. He was furious, not just at me, but at my father for raising a son who could do something like this. He said the company could not survive if people found out that the founder's own child had been stealing from them for years. He said the reputation they had spent decades building would be destroyed overnight. My father intervened. I do not know what it cost him emotionally to stand up for me in that moment, after everything I had done. But he went to George and asked him to let him handle it as a family matter. He offered to repay every cent I had stolen out of his own personal savings and retirement funds. He asked George to consider their friendship, their history, the decades they had spent building something together. He asked for mercy that I did not deserve. George agreed reluctantly, but the partnership was over. The trust between them had been shattered beyond repair, and George made it clear that he wanted nothing more to do with the Harrison family. He sold his share of the company to my father at a steep discount and walked away from the business they had built together for almost 40 years. I watched this happen from the sidelines, watched my father sacrifice his retirement security to cover my crimes, watched his oldest friendship crumble because of what I had done. And I felt powerless to stop any of it, powerless to undo the damage I had caused. My father paid back $300,000, his entire retirement savings, the money he had worked his whole life to accumulate, gone in an instant because of my greed and stupidity. He did not do it to protect me, not really. He did it to protect his company, his reputation, the legacy he had spent decades building. But the cost was enormous, both financially and emotionally. I tried to talk to him after the settlement was finalized. I went to his house, the house I had grown up in, and knocked on the door like a stranger. It took him a long time to answer, and when he did, his face was like stone. We stood there looking at each other for what felt like hours. I wanted to say something, anything that might begin to make things right, but every word seemed inadequate, every apology too small for the enormity of what I had done. I am sorry, Dad. I finally choked out the words, my voice breaking. I am so sorry. I will pay you back. I will do whatever it takes to make this right. He shook his head slowly, and that was when I saw it. That emptiness I mentioned at the beginning. That look of a man who had given up completely. You cannot make this right, Michael. What you took from me was not just money. It was my belief in you. It was my hope for the future. It was my faith that I had raised a son with integrity and character. You cannot pay that back. You cannot give me back the years I spent dreaming about what we would build together. I started to cry. I had not cried since my mother's funeral, but standing there in front of my father, seeing the devastation I had caused, I could not hold it back anymore. The tears came in waves, accompanied by these ugly, gasping sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside me. Please, Dad, please give me another chance. I will get help. I will change. I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that I can be better. He looked at me for a long time before he responded. And when he spoke, his voice was not angry. It was just tired, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical fatigue. I loved you more than anything in this world, Michael. When your mother died, you and Emma were all I had left. I poured everything I had into you. I sacrificed so you could have opportunities I never had. And this is how you repaid me, by stealing from me, by lying to me, by destroying the one thing I was most proud of building. I know, I whispered. I know, and I hate myself for it. And he stepped back and started to close the door. And just before it shut, he said the words that broke me completely. I do not hate you. I wish I could. It would be easier if I could hate you. But I cannot. I just cannot look at you right now. I cannot be around you. I need time. I need space. I need to figure out how to live with what you have done. The door closed in my face, and I stood there on the porch for what felt like hours. The sun went down. The streetlights came on. Neighbors passed by and stared at me, this grown man standing motionless on his father's porch with tears streaming down his face. Eventually my legs gave out and I sat down on the steps, unable to make myself leave, hoping against hope that the door would open again. It did not open. And finally, long after dark, I went back to my car and drove home to an empty house. Jennifer had left while I was gone. She had packed her things and gone to stay with her sister, leaving behind only the furniture and the memories and a note on the kitchen table. The note said she needed time to think, that she did not know if she could forgive me, that she would call when she was ready to talk. She never called. 3 weeks later, I was served with divorce papers. She did not want anything from me except her freedom. She did not even want to see me or speak to me. She just wanted out, and I could not blame her. I had destroyed her trust, her faith, her belief in our future together. I had taken the life we had built and burned it to the ground. I lost everything in the space of a few months. My wife, my job, my family, my self-respect. I moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, a dingy one-bedroom with stained carpets and a view of the highway. I took a job at a warehouse, stacking boxes and loading trucks for minimum wage. It was humiliating, degrading work for someone who had once worn suits and talked about million-dollar deals. But it was what I deserved. It was exactly what I deserved. Victor disappeared when the money ran out. The Velvet Room closed its doors, and no one seemed to know where he had gone. I tried to find him, wanting someone to blame, someone to share the guilt with. But he had vanished like smoke, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my life. I started going to Gamblers Anonymous meetings in a church basement on Tuesday and Thursday nights. The first few times, I just sat in the back and listened, unable to bring myself to share my story with strangers. But eventually, I started talking, started admitting the things I had done, started hearing my own words and recognizing them for the insanity they were. I also started seeing a therapist, a patient woman named Dr. Chen, who specialized in addiction and impulse control. She helped me understand the psychology behind my gambling, the way it had hijacked my brain's reward system, the way it had become a coping mechanism for emotions I did not know how to process. She helped me trace it back to my mother's death, to the emptiness I had been carrying ever since, to the desperate need for excitement and validation that I had been trying to fill with the wrong things. I learned a lot about myself during those sessions. I learned that my addiction was not really about money at all. It was about feeling powerful, feeling in control, feeling like I had some special ability that set me apart from everyone else. It was about escaping the reality of my life, the disappointment I felt in myself, the constant sense that I was not living up to my potential. Every bet was a chance to rewrite my story, to become someone different, someone better, someone worthy of love and respect. None of that knowledge made me feel better. Understanding why I had done what I did not change the fact that I had done it. Knowing that I had an illness did not undo the damage I had caused, but it was a start. It was the first step on a very long road. My sister Emma came to see me about 3 months after everything fell apart. I was not expecting her. We had not spoken since the truth came out, and I assumed she hated me as much as everyone else did. But there she was, standing in the doorway of my shabby apartment, looking around at the bare walls and the second-hand furniture with an expression I could not read. She sat down on my couch, which I had bought at a thrift store for $20, and she did not say anything for a long time. We just sat there together, two siblings who had grown up in the same house, played the same games, shared the same memories, now separated by a chasm of betrayal and disappointment. Finally, she spoke. I am not here to yell at you. I am not here to tell you what a terrible person you are. I think you already know all of that. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I am here because Dad is not doing well. He is working himself to death, Mike. He is at the office 18 hours a day, trying to rebuild what you destroyed. He has lost weight. He is not sleeping. He looks like a ghost of the man he used to be. The guilt that washed over me in that moment was almost unbearable. I had known my actions would hurt my father, but hearing Emma describe the toll it was taking on his health made it real in a way it had not been before. What can I do? I asked, even though I knew the answer. I do not know if there is anything you can do. He will not talk about you. He has taken down all the photos of you in the house. He will not mention your name. When I try to bring you up, he just changes the subject or walks away. It is like you died, Mike. It is like you died and he is mourning you. I felt tears pricking at my eyes again, but I fought them back. I had done enough crying. It was time to start doing something. I want to help, I said. I want to make this right. I know I cannot undo what I did, but there has to be something. Please, Emma, tell me what to do. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her wrestling with something, trying to decide whether to give me hope or harsh reality. Just do not give up, she finally said. I know it seems impossible right now. I know Dad seems like he will never forgive you. But he is not an unforgiving person. You know that. He has always believed in second chances, in giving people the opportunity to redeem themselves. It is just going to take time. A lot of time. I will do whatever it takes, however long it takes. I will not give up. She nodded slowly and stood up to leave. At the door, she paused and turned back to me. For what it is worth, Mike, I do not hate you either. I am angry and disappointed and hurt, but I do not hate you. You are still my brother. Nothing can change that. After she left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking about what she had said. I thought about my father, working himself to exhaustion, trying to undo the damage I had caused. I thought about the legacy he had spent his life building, the legacy I had nearly destroyed, and I made a decision. I was going to pay back every cent I had stolen. No matter how long it took, no matter what I had to sacrifice, I was going to make things right. I started sending money to my father the following month. It was not much at first, maybe a few $100s from my warehouse paycheck, but I sent it every month without fail. I included a letter with each payment, explaining that I was trying to pay back what I owed, that I was going to meetings and seeing a therapist, that I was working on becoming a better person. I did not know if he read the letters or cashed the checks, but I kept sending them, because it was the only way I knew to show him that I was trying. The work at the warehouse was brutal. I was on my feet for 10 hours a day, lifting heavy boxes, loading trucks in weather that was either too hot or too cold, surrounded by people who did not know my history and did not care to learn. But there was something almost cleansing about it, about doing honest physical labor with my hands, about earning every dollar through sweat and effort rather than manipulation and lies. I made one friend at the warehouse, a man named Derek Santos, who had been one of my colleagues at Harrison Mitchell Construction. He had left the company before my crimes were discovered to take a job at a logistics firm, and now, by some strange coincidence, he was working as a manager at the same warehouse where I was stacking boxes. Derek had tried to warn me about Victor, about the gambling, about the path I was heading down. He had seen the signs early on and tried to intervene, but I had ignored him, dismissed his concerns as jealousy or small-mindedness. Now he found me at the loading dock one day, covered in sweat and warehouse dust. And he did not gloat or say, "I told you so." He just shook his head sadly and asked if I wanted to get coffee after work. We started meeting regularly after that, Derek and I. He became my sponsor at GA, my accountability partner, the person I called when the urge to gamble became overwhelming. He had struggled with alcohol addiction in his 20s, and understood what I was going through in a way that most people could not. He helped me see that recovery was not just about not gambling. It was about changing everything, rebuilding myself from the ground up. There were many nights when I thought about giving up. Many nights when the shame and guilt became so overwhelming that I could not see any point in continuing. Many nights when I stood at the edge of a dark abyss and considered stepping off. But every time I reached that edge, something pulled me back. Sometimes it was Derek's voice on the phone, talking me through another crisis. Sometimes it was Dr. Chen's patient questions, helping me untangle the mess in my head. Sometimes it was simply the thought of my father, the hope that someday, somehow, I might earn back even a fraction of his respect. I celebrated 30 days without gambling, then 60, then 90. Each milestone felt like a small victory, a step toward becoming the person I should have been all along. I celebrated 6 months, then a year. The urges did not go away, but they became more manageable, easier to recognize and resist. I learned my triggers, the situations and emotions that made me want to gamble, and I developed strategies for coping with them. I learned to feel my feelings instead of trying to escape them, to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. After 2 years, I had paid back about $70,000. It was a fraction of what I owed, but it was progress. I had also gotten a better job, working as an assistant manager at Derek's logistics company. It was not glamorous, but it was honest work, and I was good at it. My boss said I had potential, that with time and dedication, I could move up in the company. It was the first time in years that anyone had expressed faith in my abilities. The work at the warehouse was brutal. I was on my feet for 10 hours a day, lifting heavy boxes, loading trucks in weather that was either too hot or too cold, surrounded by people who did not know my history and did not care to learn. But there was something almost cleansing about it, about doing honest physical labor with my hands, about earning every dollar through sweat and effort rather than manipulation and lies.
But my father still would not see me. I called him on his birthday, and the call went to voicemail. I sent cards on holidays, and they came back unopened. I tried to visit the house once, and he closed the door before I could say a word. Emma told me he was doing better, that he had recovered from the worst of the financial damage, that the company was actually thriving under new management. But he still could not bring himself to face me. I started to accept that maybe he never would. Maybe some wounds are too deep to heal. Maybe some betrayals are too great to forgive. I told myself I would keep trying, keep sending money, keep showing up even when he would not let me in. But I also started to grieve, to mourn the relationship I had lost and might never get back. And then, 3 years after everything fell apart, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was Emma, and her voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her. Dad had a heart attack. He is at St. Mary's Hospital. You should come. I do not remember driving to the hospital. I do not remember parking or walking through the doors or finding my way to the cardiac care unit. All I remember is standing outside my father's room, looking through the window at his frail body connected to machines and monitors, and feeling like my own heart was going to stop. Emma was there, along with her husband Mark. They looked exhausted, their faces pale with worry. Emma saw me and walked over, and I could see she had been crying. Is he going to be okay? She nodded, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. The doctor says he should recover. It was not a major attack, but his heart is weak. He needs to slow down to stop working so hard. All these years of stress have taken a toll on him, Mike. He is not young anymore. He cannot keep going like this. I looked at my father through the window. He was awake, staring at the ceiling with an expression I could not read. He looked so small, so fragile, so different from the strong, larger-than-life figure of my childhood memories. The man who had carried me on his shoulders, who had taught me to ride a bike, who had seemed invincible and immortal, now looked like he might break if you touched him too hard. Does he know I am here? Emma nodded. I told him you were coming. He did not say anything, but he did not tell me to send you away either. That is something, I guess. I stood outside that room for almost an hour before I found the courage to go in. I watched nurses come and go, watched the monitors beep their steady rhythm, watched my father drift in and out of sleep. I was terrified of what he might say, terrified that even now, facing his mortality, he would reject me one final time. But finally, I pushed open the door and walked in. My father turned his head and looked at me. We stared at each other for a long moment, two men with so much history between them, so much love and so much pain. And then he spoke, his voice weak and raspy, but still unmistakably his. You came? Of course I came. You are my father. He closed his eyes for a moment, and I thought he was going to tell me to leave. But when he opened them again, there was something different in his gaze. Not forgiveness, not yet. but maybe the beginning of it. Maybe the first crack in the wall he had built between us. Sit down, Michael. I sat in the chair next to his bed, and for a long time, neither of us said anything. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence, a steady rhythm that marked the passing of time that reminded us both how precious and fragile life really is. Finally, he spoke again. I have been angry with you for a long time, angry and hurt and disappointed. You took something from me that I can never get back. Not just the money, but my belief in you, my hope for our future together, my faith that I had raised a good man. I know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, and I am so sorry. I know that does not fix anything, but I am so sorry for what I did to you. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving my face. I know you are sorry. Emma has been telling me about your recovery, about the meetings and the therapy and the money you have been sending. She says you have been working at some warehouse, that you gave up everything to try to pay back what you stole. She says you have changed. I have. I have been trying every day to become someone you could be proud of again, someone worthy of being called your son. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said something that broke me open in a way I had not expected. When I had the heart attack, when I was lying on the floor of my office waiting for the ambulance, I thought I was going to die. And all I could think about was you. Not the betrayal, not the money, not any of that. Just you, as a little boy, sitting on my lap while I explained how to read blueprints. You, as a teenager, helping me on job sites during summer vacations. You, as a young man, telling me you wanted to be part of the family business. I remembered all the good times, Michael. All the love, all the hope I had for what you would become. Tears were streaming down my face, but I did not wipe them away. I just let them fall, let myself feel the full weight of the moment. I realized something in that moment, he continued. I realized that I have been holding on to my anger because it was easier than facing how much I missed you. It was easier to be angry than to admit that I still love you, despite everything you did. It was easier to shut you out than to risk being hurt again. Dad, let me finish. I am not saying I forgive you. I am not sure I know how to do that yet. What you did, it broke something inside me that may never fully heal. But I am saying that life is short, and I do not want to spend whatever time I have left pretending my son does not exist. I want to try. I want to try to find a way to move forward, even if I do not know what that looks like. I took his hand, and for the first time in 3 years, he did not pull away. His grip was weak, but it was there, and it was real, and it was more than I had ever dared to hope for. I will do whatever it takes, I said. Whatever you need, however long it takes. I will keep showing you that I have changed. I will keep proving to you that I am not the same person who did those things. I will earn back your trust if it is the last thing I do. He squeezed my hand weakly. I know. I believe you. I did not want to believe you, but I do. Emma has been telling me about the man you have become, and I believe her. I just need time. I need to learn to trust you again, and that is not going to happen overnight. I understand. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere. He smiled then, the first real smile I had seen on his face since before the world fell apart. It was weak, barely more than a flicker, but it was there. And in that moment, I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. Real hope. Your mother would have wanted this. She would have wanted us to find a way back to each other. I know. I think about her every day. I think about what she would say, what she would do, and I try to live in a way that would make her proud. We talked for another hour, carefully, tentatively, like two people learning to walk again after a long illness. We did not talk about the money or the betrayal or any of the painful details of what had happened. We talked about safer things, about Emma and her husband, about the changes in the company, about small moments from the past that made us both smile. We talked about my mother, sharing memories we had both been keeping locked away,
allowing ourselves to grieve together for the first time. When I left the hospital that night, I felt something shift inside me. The weight I had been carrying for 3 years did not disappear, but it became lighter. The guilt was still there, but it was no longer crushing me. I had a chance, a real chance to rebuild what I had destroyed.
The months that followed were not easy. There were setbacks, moments when my father would look at me and I could see the pain and distrust flickering in his eyes. There were times when he would start to say something and then stop, unable or unwilling to voice the thoughts in his head. There were days when I wondered if we would ever truly heal, if the damage I had done was simply too great to overcome. But we kept trying. I visited my father every week, helping him around the house, taking him to doctor's appointments, slowly rebuilding the connection between us. We had long talks on his back porch, the same porch where he had told me about integrity and sacrifice when I was just a boy. We talked about my recovery, about what I was learning in therapy, about the changes I was making in my life. We talked about his health, about the lifestyle modifications the doctors had recommended, about his plans for the future of the company. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started to shift. The wariness in his eyes began to fade. The tension in his voice when he talked to me started to ease. He started to call me sometimes, just to talk, just to hear my voice. He started to introduce me to people again, not as his estranged son, but simply as his son. 2 years after his heart attack, almost 5 years after the original betrayal, my father asked me to come back to the company. Not in a leadership role, not as a successor, but as an employee starting at the bottom and working my way up just like everyone else. I want to give you a chance to prove yourself, he said, to earn back the trust you squandered, to show that you can be a man of integrity like I always hoped you would be. It will not be easy. People will be watching you, waiting for you to fail. But if you are willing to put in the work, if you are willing to humble yourself and learn, then I am willing to give you this opportunity. I accepted without hesitation. I took a significant pay cut from my logistics job, but that did not matter. What mattered was the opportunity, the chance to rebuild something I had destroyed, to reclaim a future I had thrown away. I am 34 now, 3 years into my second chance at Harrison Construction. The company dropped the Mitchell from its name after George left, a painful reminder of the damage I had caused. But we are rebuilding, slowly and carefully, just like my relationship with my father. I work harder than anyone else, arrive earlier, stay later, take on the jobs that nobody else wants. I am not trying to prove anything to anyone except myself. I am trying to become the man I should have been all along. I will never be CEO. I know that now, and I have made peace with it. The trust I shattered cannot be fully repaired, and there will always be a part of my father that remembers what I did and wonders if I might do it again. But I do not need to be CEO. I do not need to be in charge. I just need to be here, working alongside my father, showing him every day that I am not the same person who betrayed him all those years ago. We had a conversation last month that I want to share with you. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we were sitting on his back porch, watching the sunset over the hills, just like we used to when I was a boy. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and there was a peace in the air that felt almost sacred. My father turned to me and said something I will never forget. You know, Michael, I spent a lot of time wondering where I went wrong with you. I blamed myself for your choices, thought maybe I had pushed you too hard or expected too much, but I realized that was not fair to either of us. You made your choices, bad choices, terrible choices, but you also made the choice to change. You made the choice to fight your addiction, to rebuild your life, to keep showing up even when I would not let you in. That took courage. That took strength. And I am proud of you for that. I did not know what to say. I just sat there, tears in my eyes, feeling like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. He reached over and put his hand on my shoulder, and I could feel the weight of years in that touch, the history of love and pain and forgiveness. I am not saying I have forgotten what you did. I never will. but I have forgiven you, truly forgiven you. Not because you earned it, though you have tried, but because holding on to that anger was killing me. It was eating me alive, and I did not want to spend whatever time I have left consumed by bitterness and pain, so I let it go. I chose to remember the good in you, the boy I raised, the man I believe you can still become. Thank you, Dad. Thank you for giving me another chance. I will not waste it. I promise you, I will not waste it. He smiled, that same smile from the hospital room, the one that makes me feel like maybe redemption is possible after all. I know you will not. I believe in you, Michael. I finally believe in you again. That is my story. That is how I cheated my father and watched him give up on me. It is not a pretty story. It is not a story that makes me look good, but it is the truth. And I have learned that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than lies. I am still in recovery. I will be in recovery for the rest of my life. The urge to gamble never fully goes away. It just gets easier to resist, easier to recognize, easier to manage. I go to meetings. I see my therapist. I call Derek when I need to talk. I do the work every single day because I know what happens when I stop. My father is 70 now, slowing down, but still sharp, still the most principled man I have ever known. We are closer now than we were even before the betrayal, in some ways. We talk about things we never talked about before, about our fears and our hopes, about the past and the future, about what it means to be a man of integrity in a world that often rewards the opposite. I will never be able to fully repay what I stole from him. Not just the money, though I am still working on that, but the years of trust, the dreams he had for our future, the relationship we could have had if I had made different choices. Those things are gone forever, casualties of my addiction and my weakness. But I have learned that redemption is not about erasing the past. It is about building a different future. It is about waking up every day and choosing to be better than you were yesterday. It is about showing up even when it is hard, even when you are tired, even when you want to give up. It is about proving through actions rather than words that you are worthy of the second chance you have been given. My father gave me that chance. After everything I did, after all the pain I caused, he opened his heart and let me back in. That is a gift I will never take for granted. If you are listening to this and you are struggling with addiction, I want you to know that there is hope. It does not feel like it when you are in the depths of it, when every fiber of your being is screaming for just one more bet, one more drink, one more hit. But there is hope. There is help. There are people who will stand beside you and support you as you fight your way back to yourself. And if you are listening to this and someone you love has hurt you the way I hurt my father, I want you to know that forgiveness is possible. Not easy, never easy, but possible. It does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending the pain did not happen. It means choosing to let go of the anger that is eating you alive. It means opening yourself up to the possibility that people can change, that the person who hurt you is not the same person they will always be. My father taught me that. He taught me through his example, through his willingness to try again when every instinct must have been screaming at him to walk away. He taught me that love is not just about the good times. It is about choosing to love even when it is hard, even when you have been hurt, even when you have every reason to give up. I cheated my father, I lied to him and stole from him and broke his heart in ways that I still struggle to comprehend. I watched him give up on me, watched the light die in his eyes, watched him become a stranger to his own son. But I also watched him come back. I watched him choose hope over despair, love over anger, forgiveness over bitterness. I watched him give me a second chance that I did not deserve but have tried every day to earn. And now, sitting here telling you this story, I can finally say that I understand what my father was trying to teach me all along. It is not about never making mistakes. It is not about being perfect or always having the right answers. It is about getting up when you fall down. It is about facing your failures with honesty and courage. It is about never giving up on the people you love, even when they give you every reason to. That is my father's legacy. Not the company he built, not the money he made, not any of the external markers of success. His legacy is the way he loved me, even when I was unlovable. His legacy is the second chance he gave me, even when I did not deserve it. His legacy is the man I am still becoming, one day at a time, because he refused to give up on me forever. I am Michael Harrison. I am 34 years old. I cheated my father and watched him give up on me. And then, through his grace and my determination, we found our way back to each other. This is my confession. This is my truth. And I share it with you in the hope that it might help someone else find their way out of the darkness. Because if I can change, anyone can. If my father can forgive, anyone can. If we can rebuild our relationship after everything that happened, then nothing is truly beyond repair. Nothing. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me the space to be honest about who I was and who I am trying to become. And if you are struggling, if you are lost, if you feel like there is no way out, please know that you are not alone. There's always hope. There's always a path forward. You just have to be willing to take the first step. And if my story has touched you in any way, if it has given you hope or perspective, or simply the knowledge that you are not alone in your struggles, then perhaps something good has come from all the pain I caused. Perhaps my story can serve as a warning to others, a cautionary tale about the dangers of addiction and deception. Perhaps it can also serve as proof that redemption is possible, that even the deepest wounds can heal, that love can survive even the worst betrayals. That is what I choose to believe now. That is what keeps me going, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of integrity at a time. My name is Michael Harrison, and this has been my confession.